They were only 2 weeks into their marriage. Fresh from the thrill of their honeymoon, the energy between them was electric. They laughed at the same jokes, ate from the same plate, and couldn't keep their hands off each other. Every morning, the neighbors would hear faint giggles and joyful chatter drifting from their apartment. And every night, the rhythm of the creaky bed spoke a silent language of love. If happiness had a face, it lived in the smiles of Daniel and Maya. Daniel was everything a woman could desire: tall, charming, with a strong jawline and a calm confidence that turned heads. But what Maya loved most about him wasn't what others saw. It was the tenderness, the way he listened, his loyalty. Their honeymoon had been a dream, filled with laughter, new memories, and passion. In her excitement, Maya shared everything. With her mother, the person she trusted most. "Mom, you won't believe it," she whispered one evening during a late phone call, giggling softly. "This man treats me like a queen. I've never known anything like this before." Her mother, Mama Doreen, laughed on the other end. Her voice carried years of wisdom. "Enjoy it, my daughter. It's your turn to be happy." What Maya didn't know was that her mother remembered every word, every description, and somewhere deep inside her heart, something inappropriate began to brew. Mama Doreen came to visit the following weekend. She said her doctor recommended a change in environment for her health. Maya welcomed her warmly, calling her Mommy, embracing her with the same affection she always had. Mama Doreen looked younger than her age. Her skin glowed naturally, her figure still curved with grace, and her steps carried the pride of a woman who once ruled attention. The visit was supposed to be short, a week at most, but the doctor's follow-up never came. Slowly, Mama Doreen made herself at home, helping with chores, cooking meals, humming old love songs as she moved about the house. Daniel remained respectful, as any son-in-law should. But over time, he noticed how her hugs lingered just a little too long, how her gaze followed him when she thought no one noticed, how she'd laugh too hard at his jokes and wear loose clothing that sometimes slipped a little too conveniently. Daniel ignored it. At least he tried. But things shifted the day she hugged him by the car as he returned from work, tired, shirt loosened. She smiled and walked up to him with open arms. The embrace was warm, but then she kissed him, not on the cheek, on the lips, soft and slow. He pulled back immediately, stunned. "Mommy, what was that?" She smiled softly. "Just happy to see you." He didn't tell Maya. How could he? That night, as she lay asleep, he stayed awake in turmoil. He wanted to believe it meant nothing, that it was a mistake. But the unease wouldn't leave him. It lingered in every corner of the house, in every gaze Mama Doreen gave. And deep down, a storm was slowly building. Days passed, and Daniel tried to pretend the incident at the car park never happened. But silence is a tricky thing. It doesn't bury guilt. It feeds it. Mama Doreen's behavior grew bolder. She no longer looked away when he caught her staring. She lingered around him when Maya wasn't home, offering help he didn't ask for, smiling too long, humming romantic old tunes that made him uncomfortable. Still, Daniel said nothing. Maybe he was imagining it all. Maybe she was just being friendly, or maybe not. Then came the night everything began to unravel. A small argument had flared between Maya and Daniel, something petty, something about dishes, or maybe forgetting to take out the trash. But the words flew louder than they should. Have. Maya, in frustration, locked herself in the bedroom, refusing to let Daniel back in. Daniel was left on the couch, shirtless and exhausted, rubbing his forehead in the dimly lit living room. He didn't expect Mama Doreen to appear. She walked in quietly, wearing her nightrobe. Elegant, but far too revealing. She didn't ask what the fight was about. She didn't pretend to care. Instead, she sat beside him and gently placed her hand on his chest. Don't let this marriage wear you down, she whispered. He flinched, taken aback. Please, Mama. This isn't the time. She leaned in, closer than comfort allowed. Her voice was velvet. You don't have to carry it all alone. Before he could react, she kissed him again. Daniel pushed her away, heart racing. Stop. Don't do that. Just then the bedroom door opened. Maya walked out, eyes burning. She hadn't seen the kiss, but she had heard his voice. Don't you ever raise your voice at my mother again, she snapped, grabbing Mama Doreen by the hand and pulling her back into the bedroom. Daniel stood frozen in the living room, stunned, confused, and now dangerously cornered by something he didn't invite, but hadn't forcefully shut down either. From that day on, Maya changed. She became cold, distant. Her words were clipped. Her smiles vanished. Most nights, Daniel slept alone on the couch. And then, slowly, Mama Doreen returned to the picture. She brought him blankets, tucked him in, cooked his favorite meals. And in that quiet war between loyalty and desire, she played a soft, dangerous game. Never speaking of that kiss, but never stepping back either. One night, as Maya locked the bedroom again, Mama Doreen approached him. The house was silent. Her voice was soft. You didn't tell her. Why? He hesitated. I didn't want to hurt her. She nodded slowly. Me and my daughter, we're one. You've had her. Now... He cut her off, eyes wide with disbelief. Don't say that. But her hand was already on his. His body tensed, caught between guilt and confusion. He didn't lean in. But he didn't lean away either. The night swallowed the rest. Daniel woke before sunrise, his head pounding, his body heavy. The living room was quiet, almost too quiet. The blanket she had draped over him was still warm. The scent of her perfume, spicy, sweet, unsettling, lingered in the fabric and the air. He sat up, the weight of what had happened crashing onto him like a flood. He had crossed a line he thought he'd never even approach. He told himself it was a mistake, that it happened only once, that it would never happen again, that he could live with the guilt quietly, hide it, forget it. But guilt is a slow poison. It doesn't forget. When he returned to the bedroom, Maya was still asleep. She lay there peacefully, unaware that the foundation of her world had just been cracked wide open. Daniel tiptoed past her into the bathroom and stared at himself in the mirror. You're a monster, he whispered to the reflection. But somewhere deep inside, buried beneath the shame, a darker voice said something else. You're not sorry. Not completely. Later that day, Maya behaved as if nothing had changed. She got dressed, avoided eye contact, and left for work after giving him a dry peck on the cheek. It hurt more than a slap, but Mama Doreen, she was radiant, too radiant. She floated around the house in a form-fitting dress, humming again. Her words were casual, but her gaze carried something heavier. When she served Daniel breakfast, her fingers brushed his as she handed him the cup of tea. That small contact sent shivers through him, shivers of regret, of memory, of confusion. The next few days blurred into each other. Maya became a ghost in their home, present, but emotionally gone. She didn't ask questions, she didn't search for reasons. She simply disappeared into herself, and Mama Doreen stayed. Every time Maya left for work, she would linger, cleaning, cooking. Then, around midday, she would softly knock on the guest room door, Daniel's new place of rest. At first, he ignored her. Then he stopped trying. The routine settled like a slow fog. A whisper here, a touch there. Her hands, her voice, her warmth. She made him feel like a man again, even as shame crawled over his skin afterward. Every time he promised himself it was the last time. But temptation, when not faced directly, becomes rhythm. One Wednesday, Daniel was at the sink when Mama Doreen returned from the market. She stood behind him silently, then wrapped her arms around his waist. He froze. "We need to talk," he said. "Then talk while you hold me," she replied softly. "No," he said, trying to pull away. "This is wrong. Maya's your daughter." "My wife?" She stepped in front of him, held his face in both hands. "You think I don't know that? You think I don't feel the guilt, too? But you woke something in me, Daniel. Something I thought I'd buried. You should have left after the first week," he muttered, stepping back. "But you didn't want me to," she said, and he had no answer. That night, Maya came home late. She looked tired, worn down. "We're pretending too much," she said quietly. Daniel reached out to her, but she stepped away. "We're not husband and wife anymore, we're roommates." Then she turned and locked the bedroom door. Again. The days stretched on like shadows, silent, tense, and dangerous. Maya moved like a woman holding invisible weights. Her smiles were mechanical. Her words, few. She no longer asked where Daniel had been, no longer kissed him goodbye. It was as if something in her had already let go, and Daniel, he was stuck. The guilt hadn't vanished, but it had grown quieter, more familiar. Mama Doreen had made herself a permanent fixture in the house, an unspoken queen in a palace built on betrayal. Then Maya left for a short business trip. "I'll be back in 2 days," she said flatly, barely making eye contact. She packed lightly, gave Daniel a tight-lipped nod, and walked out of the door without a backward glance. The silence she left behind was different, freeing and suffocating. Daniel stayed in the guest room most of the day, tapping listlessly on his laptop. Around noon, a soft knock echoed through the room. He didn't respond. The door creaked open. Mama Doreen entered, wearing one of Maya's oversized T-shirts. It hung off her shoulder, but still somehow hugged her curves. She folded her legs on the bed beside him and stared at him silently for a moment. "Daniel," she whispered, "do you regret it?" He looked away. Every day. She didn't flinch. "And yet, you haven't stopped." His silence was louder than a confession. "Why are you doing this to me?" he asked, his voice barely above a breath. "I don't know," she replied, her eyes clouded. "Maybe it's loneliness, maybe it's pain, maybe it's selfishness. But when I'm near you, I feel alive again, like a woman, not just someone's mother." There was a long pause between them. Then she leaned in and kissed him, not urgently, not hungrily, but gently, with sadness, with longing. He kissed her back, and just like that, they dissolved into each other again. This time, it happened not under the cover of darkness, but in full daylight, on the rug, under the soft glow of morning sun. It felt wrong. It was wrong. But the line between guilt and desire had blurred so many times it now barely existed. The days continued. And with each one, Daniel's shame dulled further. Mama Doreen became a second presence in his life, cooking for him, bringing him lunch, sometimes waiting for him in the guest room, her fingers grazing his hand like it was natural. He even started lying to the office, leaving early just to be home while Maya was away. But the strangest part? Maya never asked. She came home each night with tired eyes and an expression that said, "I've stopped expecting anything from you." Daniel wondered, did she know? Or had she buried her suspicions so deep she couldn't bear to face them? The house was a performance now, a theater of silence and smiles. No shouting, no weeping. Just 3 people circling secrets they refused to say out loud. Until the day everything collapsed, and they never saw it coming. It was a Tuesday afternoon, quiet like most days. The sky outside was dull and heavy with clouds, but inside the house, Something darker was about to break. Daniel had rushed home, shirt half tucked, trying to get there before Maya. She'd said she'd be home by 5. It was only 4:15. He unlocked the door and stepped in, breathless. Mama Doreen was already there, waiting. Her wrapper was tied loosely around her waist. The smile on her face was wide, almost triumphant. They didn't even make it to the couch this time. Right there in the hallway, hands tangled, breath shallow, lips pressed desperately. They were so consumed they didn't hear the door creak open. Didn't hear the click of Maya's heels. Didn't even notice the shadow step inside, until a gasp. Sharp. Shattered. Daniel turned around mid-motion, eyes wide in horror. Maya stood by the door, frozen. Her handbag slipped from her hand in slow motion and hit the ground with a heavy thud. Her eyes darted between her mother's half-clothed body and Daniel's unbuttoned shirt, disbelief painted across her face. She tried to speak, but no words came out. Daniel stumbled forward. Maya, it's not what it looks like. But it was. Her legs gave out. She collapsed to the floor, not screaming, but letting out a sound so broken, so guttural, it hollowed the air. Her eyes rolled back, and everything went still. Maya! Daniel shouted, rushing to her side. Mama Doreen stood still, one hand covering her mouth, her eyes wide in shock. The next few minutes were a blur. Neighbors rushing in, someone calling, an ambulance, the flashing red lights, the stretcher rolling out the door. Daniel sat beside her hospital bed, his hands buried in his hair, heart racing uncontrollably. The doctor's words from earlier echoed in his mind. She collapsed due to psychological trauma. She'll wake up eventually, but you need to be ready. The kind of emotional shock she experienced, it's not easy to recover from. Daniel looked at Maya's still face, pale, peaceful, like a person floating somewhere between sleep and silence. He whispered near her ear, I'm sorry. I ruined everything. I never meant to hurt you. I love you. But the machines kept beeping. Maya didn't move. She didn't hear him. Back home, the house felt haunted. The air was thick with regret. Mama Doreen was sitting silently in the living room when Daniel returned, her eyes red and swollen, her hands clutching a scarf. She's awake, he said coldly. I heard, she replied quietly. He sat down far from her, his voice hollow. You should have never come back. This is still my daughter's house, she whispered. And you destroyed her, he said, tears forming. You destroyed everything. She opened her mouth to reply, but no words came. That night, Daniel didn't sleep. Maya's final words, before the collapse rang in his mind, don't ever come back. The hospital room remained silent for 3 days. Daniel visited every day, sitting quietly at Maya's bedside. He watched her chest rise and fall. He brought flowers she never saw, whispered apologies she never heard, told stories she never responded to. He didn't eat much, couldn't sleep. He just sat, waiting, hoping. Mama Doreen never came. Daniel didn't want her there, and even if she had shown up, Maya wouldn't have seen her. She didn't open her eyes, didn't move, didn't speak. The doctors called it trauma-induced withdrawal, a shutdown of the body in response to deep emotional pain. The nurses said she'd recover, but the speed depended on her emotional environment. And Daniel wasn't it anymore. On the 4th day, she finally opened her eyes. No gasp, no cry, just a slow, blank stare at the ceiling. Daniel leaned in, heart racing. Maya, baby? She didn't respond. She turned her head slightly and looked at him, not with anger or love, but with nothing. A void. Later that evening, she spoke her first words since the collapse. Don't come back home. Daniel nodded. He didn't argue. He knew he had no place to. Back at the house, the silence was heavier than before. Mama Doreen was still there, sitting in the living room, wearing the same wrapper from days before. Her hair was unkempt, her face swollen with fatigue and guilt. She didn't look up when Daniel walked in. "She's awake," he said, voice cold. "I know," she whispered. "I heard." He stayed standing, far from her. "You shouldn't be here." "This is still her home," she said quietly. "And I still care about her." He snapped, his voice trembling, eyes bloodshot. "Then why did you destroy her?" She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Shame hung between them like fog. That night, Daniel lay awake in the guest room. He stared at the ceiling for hours, hearing echoes of Maya's voice. "Don't come back." He pressed a pillow against his chest, trying to silence the ache. But the memories wouldn't let him rest. Her laughter, her eyes, their wedding day. Her hand in his on the beach during the honeymoon. Everything was ruined. At midnight, there was a soft knock on his door. He said nothing. Mama Doreen entered anyway. "I'm leaving tomorrow," she said softly, standing in the doorway. He didn't. "Look at her." "You should." She stepped inside, her voice trembling. "I know I was wrong, but I also know what I felt. I didn't plan to fall for you. It just happened." Daniel turned to her, eyes burning. "That's not love. That's obsession. You used your daughter's pain to fill your emptiness, and I let you. We're both disgusting." She flinched like he'd slapped her. "I said I'm leaving." She whispered again. And then she left the room, her shadow stretching down the hall like a ghost. In the morning, she was gone. No goodbye, no tears. Just silence. She left behind her perfume, a pair of earrings on the dresser, a scarf folded on the couch, remnants of her presence. Daniel didn't return to the hospital. He knew he wasn't. Welcome. He sent Maya messages every day. "I'm sorry. I love you. I'll never forgive myself." But her replies never came. Days turned to weeks. The world moved on, but Daniel remained stuck, living in the ruins of a life he had destroyed. The house was quiet now. Too quiet. He had it all to himself, but it no longer felt like home. It felt like a graveyard, every corner holding a memory, every wall whispering regret. Maya didn't call. She didn't text. Her silence was louder than any scream. Daniel stopped checking his phone after a while. He boxed up her belongings, careful with each item, her scarves, her photo frames, the mug she loved. He wrapped their wedding picture in newspaper and dropped it into the trash. It felt like tearing out a piece of himself. Then he left. He moved into a small flat on the edge of town. Bare, quiet, cold. There was no welcome mat, no pictures on the wall. Just a mattress, a chair, and the echoes of guilt. At work, people noticed he looked different, thinner, quieter. They stopped inviting him out for lunch. He avoided eye contact. He stopped going to church. He couldn't walk through those doors, knowing what he'd done. One rainy afternoon, as the sky wept outside and the tea in his cup turned cold, a text appeared on his phone. "We need to talk. Meet me at Mama F's Garden Cafe. 4 p.m. Maya, he stared at the message for a long time. He checked the number. It was hers. Was it real? He didn't think. He moved, showered, shaved, wore his cleanest shirt. He drove like a man chasing hope. When he arrived, Maya was already seated, under a tree, alone, sipping a drink from a glass cup. She looked different. No makeup, no jewelry. Just a simple blouse and her hair in braids. But she looked strong. He approached slowly, afraid. She might vanish if he blinked too hard. She looked up. A faint smile tugged at her lips. "You look thinner," she said. He sat down, eyes locked on hers. "You look peaceful." "I've had time," she replied. To think, to cry, to breathe. I'm sorry, he said. It doesn't feel like enough, I know. But it's the truth. She nodded. I believe you. She reached into her bag and pulled out a brown envelope. She slid it across the table toward him. He hesitated. What's this? An annulment petition, she said. No court drama, no property. Just closure. I've signed it. You just need to add yours. His heart dropped. He touched the envelope but didn't open it. So, that's it? He asked. She looked him in the eyes, calm, steady. You crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. My own mother, Daniel, my role model. And you, my husband, my future. He looked down. I regret it every day. She nodded. And still, it happened. They sat in silence as people passed nearby. A child laughed. A waiter shouted an order. But at their table it was still. Then Maya reached into her bag again. She pulled out a small key and placed it gently on the table. What's that? Daniel asked. The house key, she said. I'm not coming back. Daniel stared at the key on the table. His fingers trembled slightly as they hovered above it, unsure whether to touch it or leave it alone, like it might burn him if he tried to claim what no longer belonged to him. You're not coming back, he repeated. Barely a whisper, Maya's voice was gentle but firm. No. His throat tightened. So you're done. She looked at him for a long time, her eyes filled with something deeper than anger, clarity. I forgave you, Daniel. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. A tear slid down his cheek. He didn't wipe it. I don't know how to live without you, he whispered. You'll learn, she replied, her tone soft. Final. He looked away, swallowing the lump in his throat. After a moment, he dared to ask, Did your mom ever try to reach out to you? Maya nodded. She sent a letter. He straightened. What did it say? I didn't read it. I burnt it. A dry, tired laugh escaped her lips, more sad than amused. She said she loved me, I'm sure, but love born from betrayal is cursed. You'll carry that scar forever. So will I. Daniel leaned forward. I wish I could go back. Undo everything. I believe you, Maya said. But even if you could go back, you would still have made a choice. There was nothing left to say. She stood up, her presence graceful yet distant. He stood too, as if by instinct. He wanted to reach for her, hold her hand one last time, but his hands stayed at his sides. I wish I had been enough for you, he murmured. She turned to him, her expression unreadable. You were. I just didn't know I was sharing. She walked away, her footsteps steady, her shoulders upright. He watched her until she turned the corner and disappeared. The drive home was long. He didn't cry, he didn't scream. He just let the wind slap his face through the open window like a punishment he knew he deserved. Back at the house, he stood in the middle of the living room. The silence felt thicker now. The furniture untouched. The couch where it all began, still in place. Still cursed. He placed the envelope on the table and finally opened it. Her signature stared back at him, elegant, calm, irreversible. His hands trembled as he picked up the pen. For a moment he paused, hoping maybe this was all a nightmare. But it wasn't. With one stroke of ink, he signed away the last piece of the life he had destroyed. The next morning, Daniel began to pack. Every corner of the house echoed with memories. Each drawer a reminder of laughter now lost. Each wall a witness to a betrayal that shattered something sacred. He folded Maya's remaining clothes, gently placing them in a box. Her favorite book, still marked on page 112, a Polaroid from their honeymoon, The little bracelet she forgot in the bathroom. He wrapped everything with care. Then he found the wedding photo, the one in the silver frame. He stared at it for a long time. Her smile, his arm around her shoulders, the sparkle of a love they thought would last forever. Without hesitation, he wrapped it in newspaper and dropped it into the trash bin. 1 week later, he moved out. He found a small one-bedroom flat on the outskirts of town. No memories, no ghosts, just bare walls and a bed. It wasn't home. It was escape. He didn't decorate. He didn't invite anyone over. He just existed. Life went on around him, but Daniel moved through it like a shadow. He went to work, answered emails, held meetings, but the spark was gone. Colleagues stopped, asking if he was okay. Friends stopped calling altogether. He couldn't blame them. He wouldn't have called himself either. He didn't go near Maya's part of town. Couldn't risk it. But every now and then, he caught glimpses of her in his dreams, laughing again, spinning in her wedding dress, then turning away. One evening, as he unlocked his apartment door, he noticed an envelope on the floor. No stamp, no address, just folded paper, placed neatly like someone had come and gone without knocking. He opened it. "Daniel, I know you hate me. I hate myself too. I've left town. I'm trying to rebuild somewhere far away, from you and from her, but I can't sleep without saying this. I did love you. Maybe not in the way I should have. Maybe not the way you deserved. But it was real for me. I hope one day you'll forgive yourself. I already forgave you. I just don't know if I'll ever forgive myself." Doreen Daniel stared at the letter. His chest hollow. He crumpled it slowly and tossed it into the bin. Because forgiveness wasn't coming. Not today. And Maya? She was gone. Gone like their vows. Gone like the innocence they once shared. Gone like the version of himself he no longer recognized. The silence wasn't temporary anymore. It had become a lifestyle. A quiet, steady punishment he lived inside. But fate wasn't done with him yet, because some consequences take time to bloom. And Daniel had one more chapter to face. 3 months had passed. Long, gray, heavy months. Daniel had become something of a ghost, barely visible in his own life. He still went to work, but the fire that once made him stand out had long burned out. His colleagues whispered about how thin he looked, how quiet he'd become. But no one asked. And he didn't explain. His home was no home at all, just a place to sleep. And remember, there was no music, no laughter, only the hum of silence and the dull ache of regret. The couch in the corner reminded him of everything he had lost. And the bed never felt warm, no matter how many blankets he used. Sometimes when the nights got too still, he'd hear her voice, Maya's, echoing in his head. Sometimes soft, sometimes cracking. Don't come back home. He never did. Until one Saturday afternoon, something unexpected happened. He received another text, this time from Maya. "I'm coming to the house, just to pick up some final documents." He stared at the message for a full minute, his chest tightening. He hadn't seen her since the cafe. Hadn't heard her voice in weeks. When the doorbell rang, he opened it slowly, and there she was. Maya stood in the doorway, calm, collected, yet stronger than before. Her skin looked healthier, her steps more assured. She didn't smile, didn't greet him, just nodded slightly. "I just need some things. Documents, clothes," she said, eyes scanning the room but not meeting his. "Of course," Daniel said, stepping aside. She moved through the house like a stranger, her steps light, efficient, her hands quick as she folded what little was left of her old life. Daniel followed her from a distance, like a ghost chasing a memory. Then, as she zipped, her suitcase shut, she turned to him. "I need to ask you something." He braced himself. How long did it go on? She asked. He opened his mouth, but no words came. She nodded, swallowing hard. That long? I tried to stop it, he said finally. I did. She looked at him sharply. But you didn't. You let it happen. You enjoyed it. That truth landed like a punch. He didn't defend himself. He couldn't. You broke me, Daniel, she said, her voice cracking just enough to cut deeper than a scream. Both of you did. But I'll survive. That's what I do. She grabbed her bag and headed for the door. Before stepping out, she paused, turned slightly, and added, If there's any justice in this world, you'll carry this shame for the rest of your life. And then she left. He stood there, frozen, watching the door as it clicked shut behind her. He didn't chase her, didn't beg. He just stood still. Because some losses are meant to be permanent. Daniel didn't cry, didn't scream. He sat on the couch, the same cursed couch, and stared at the blank TV screen as night fell around him. In the silence, he remembered her last words, and they stayed with him. Some mistakes can't be undone, but they can be survived. And now, survival was all he had left.